And a new report, though, that it was very odd to read the other day, raising questions about a growing federal arms race. The number of non-defense federal officers authorized to carry firearms now exceeds the number of U.S. Marines. Joining us now, former Senator Tom Coburn. He is chairman of the Open the Books, an organization behind that research, and he penned this op-ed that I read in the Wall Street Journal. Why does the IRS need guns? And Senator, it's good to see you. And just to summarize, I think what it was 8 or 9 years ago there were 70,000 total, and now there's 200,000. And when I first started reading, I just didn't understand why is the department, why is the IRS, why is HHS, why stockpiling AR-15s and ammo? I don't understand why.
Well, it's hard to understand. First of all, I don't think it's constitutional for them to be doing that, number one. If, in fact, they need protection, they ought to be using local police forces who are there, trained, and ready. The VA in 1995 had 0, and they have 7,000 now. So what we have is a mentality that says we need to protect our agencies, and what we really need is a ban on assault weapons for the IRS and federal agencies. Billions of rounds of hollow point ammunition owned by several military-related, non-defense-related, non-security-related agencies throughout the federal government. And it's billions of dollars every year. This isn't a small thing, both in terms of the principle of unarmed federal government in terms of their agencies and the cost. So there's two big problems with it that I see.
I mean, if you were like a conspiracy theorist, and number one, it's not just the last 7 years. This started during the Bush administration, too.
That's right.
Okay,
that's
so,
right.
But when I first read it, I was thinking, well, let's see, if your stated intention is to do all you can maybe to take guns out of the general population, and suddenly you're arming all of these non-defense federal agencies, that would raise an eyebrow. But I don't think that's the story here for you, is it, Senator? It's more just there's not something weird going on where you're, suddenly you got the IRS with all these guys carrying AR-15s.
Joe, it's another example of a
waste.
Totally out of control federal government with nobody managing them. Now an impact on the rights of Americans, and certainly an impact on the future finances of young Americans. And so that's why we need something like a convention of states that will actually limit the scope and jurisdiction of the federal government. This is wasted money. And if they need that kind of protection, I have a great example for you. My hometown, I ran into a Homeland Security black van, loaded to the hilt. And I asked the guy, this is why I was a sitting U.S. Senator, what are you doing? What's your job? He said, it's to protect you. I said, no, that's what my local police are for. What's your job? He could not tell me what his job was, but I guarantee he had a $300,000 outfitted SUV and a couple of guns on his hips driving around my hometown. And for what purpose?
Senator, when you think about guns, one of the big issues in the past 24 hours has been the Senate decision on guns and this terrorist watch list. Where would have you come out?
Well, I probably would have put anybody that's on a terrorist watch list with a notification so that the FBI is notified that they're trying to buy a gun, and they would have had to gone through additional screening, without a doubt. We offered a plan while I was in the Senate for gun shows that would have protected individual rights and allowed us to have good clearance for everybody in those without limiting Second Amendment rights.
That seems like a sensible step. Why is it that we're not there?
I can't tell you. Well, our problem is we don't have great leadership anywhere in our country right now. That's our problem. We don't have people that will talk about what the real problems are. These are symptoms. These aren't the problems. These are the symptoms of the problem. And until you start diagnosing the problem, and the problem is, and you're going to know my answer, is we have a federal government that's 10 to 100 times bigger than it was ever intended. It impacts every area of everybody's lives, and is taking over areas that are best controlled by local governments and state governments.
Right.
And we have no leadership to change that, and that's why a convention of the states, we have 8 states now, we'll have 22, 23 next year, to actually reform the responsibilities of the federal government when it comes to our individual rights.
All right, Senator, thank you, and we
welcome,
understand
Joe.
completely now. We appreciate you coming on today. We'll see you later.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Okay.
See you later.
Okay.
When we come back.